Alrighty, so it has been a hot 6, 7 months. We almost died through a hurricane, and we are diving into meet the admins of the Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. So previously we had one Jason King on there, one of our founding fathers, I guess you could call him.
One of the OGs.
We had a wonderful conversation, dove into the eclectic mind that he has and how he approaches things. So I figure what better way to throw the next one on is our own Mr. Sean Farrell. You all know him. He is a very vocal person in the group, obviously, and he is one of the founders, if not the biggest founder of the group. So we're going to dive into some just picking Sean's brain and what he looks for and kind of how he got into the industry in and of itself. So Sean, welcome. I don't know exactly what to do with your hands, but you've got them. But so tell me exactly what, before we even get into the society, what got you into whiskey in the beginning?
I'd say it was college. So a lot of it was living amongst just a bunch of, I was in a fraternity at Florida State. You would pregame before going out. You would you're on a college budget, you're not really working. I worked at a sorority house, like serving food, so I got food taken care of. All right, let's keep it cheap. So something you might appreciate is back in the day buying bottles of Wild Turkey 101.
Little 101 action.
Take a shot here or two, and back before you knew anything about it.
Right.
Give yourself a nice base before going out and spending times with some friends and living the college lifestyle. But then after that, went to law school. I would come back down for tailgating purposes, and back in these days, we'd be able to find Buffalo Trace for $19.99 a bottle. And for us, it was perfect for just drinking straight, perfect for mixing with Coke. We'd also do a lot of like Jim Beam and Diet Coke for watching football games and stuff like that. So that was kind of the beginning of the whiskey journey. Was okay, it's a little harsh, especially coming when you're drinking a lot of, say, beer is the background of your journey. But once you kind of learn that there's so much more within whiskey, it completely changes. Everything is both you and everybody.
I can completely understand that. That story is one told by many.
It's not an original, so
I can completely understand that one. So, as it sits now, we're at 3 and some change thousand members in this group.
3K.
That I spoke to Jason previously on myself trying to start one. What got you into starting one? Because I know we had talked about how COVID influenced, and I think we all had kind of a similar background. I mean, you spoke when we first met, kind of a similar thing. So, what brought about the Southwest Florida Bourbon Society?
So, in all reality, like, it wasn't supposed to be a big localized society, kind of interacting with so many people that we meet at stores, restaurants, bars, just passing every day, like grocery stores. It all started, so even before COVID started, one of my best friends from college, my old roommate, Justin Hartman, had stopped being an attorney in New York City, moved to Buffalo, where he's from, him and his wife. And his passion project between like him and his dad had all these memories with whiskey, bourbon in particular.
Right.
So he moves back to Buffalo and decides to start a distillery. And I'm like, holy cow, that's incredible. That's like going completely different direction than being an attorney. So my wife had surprised me for my birthday for tickets to go up with some fraternity brothers and families up to see the distillery, visit them, just because it had been a couple years. We just so happened to be up there during the grand opening for the distillery. From there, he got to try his product, got to just learn bits and pieces from him about, all right, what made you do this? Why this? Like, why'd you go this way? And then, you pull that little string, and then that whole ball of yarn just turns into a mountain, and trying to figure out, like, all right, why did you pick this yeast? Why did you choose this barrel? How old? Like, what are you looking for? What's your taste profile?
Right.
And then, like, that just put something in the back of my head. So it was my wife's birthday. She was out of town. We had a 1-year-old. She got back from, like, a girls' weekend for her birthday and was flying out to Hawaii to visit her family. Took my daughter. That was early March that year. 3 days later, that's when all the COVID shutdown happened.
Right.
So for 5 months, I was without my wife and daughter. During that time, everyone was supposed to shelter in place, not supposed to go out to bars, not supposed to drink with all your friends. I went to high school down here in Fort Myers, so still have a lot of friends. And one of my best friend, Pat, him and I decided, let's take those little Tupperware, probably holds up to like 2
Yeah.
ounces. We'd fill them up, drop them at each other's door, put on marker 1 through 4. And then that night we'd get on a Zoom and you wouldn't know what's in it.
Right.
You'd go one way, give your tasting notes, go backwards, decide your top 4, and then your friend would reveal it.
Right.
We did that. All of a sudden, more and more friends were like, oh, that's a cool idea. Why don't we do this together? We got to pass time. We're not getting together. Not supposed to have more than, a couple people outside of who you live with.
Right.
From there, we were just talking, and we're like, oh, it'd be funny. Why don't we start the Southwest Florida Bourbon Society? And, I mean, in all reality, it probably wouldn't have been named Bourbon because that kind of pigeonholes you, but I feel like we do a good job. Not just pigeonholing it, but then Southwest Florida is such a vast kind of area, which in hindsight probably was a little bit too overreaching, but I think
you turned out okay.
I think we make it work. So,
Yeah.
But that's kind of how this all started, and it was never meant to be some big thing with a bunch of, in the beginning, strangers, but now it's turned into something that was way bigger and way better than I think any of us ever thought when it all got started.
Right, and previously stated before, I did the exact same thing during COVID. I had been in the bourbon hobby probably since 2012, I guess you could say. I think I told you before. I was big into Scotch before bourbon. Kind of got into it about 2006, 2007. But when COVID hit, we did the same thing. My best friend Eric and one of the guys in our society, Ben Sisk, who was just had a mutual friend of my wife's that we just got to know each other. A friend of mine who owned a brewery, and we kind of did the same thing. I would drop by.
Old Soul, right?
Yeah. I would drop by and put samples in their mailbox.
Exactly.
You social distance. So do the same thing, and then I had the notion and the want to start something like that down here because there wasn't one before COVID. I didn't have the gumption to do it. It's a lot,
And that's what it was. It was literally just, all right, let's start a Facebook. We'll have a Facebook page. We'll mess around. That way, we can go back. I think the main idea was, okay, we can go back. We'll have pictures of stuff that we've done.
Yep.
So, you'll forget which ones you've done, how you rank stuff. You'd have something you can fall back on. And then from there, so even reversing back, I guess, with the bourbon journey, I remember I had graduated law school, moved back down to Florida, and I remember one of the major kind of things I had ever, I still remember this day reading a Wright Thompson article about the growth and how Pappy Van Winkle is the end-all be-all, the best bourbon you'll ever have that you can't try anymore.
Right.
And funny enough, so in between law school and taking the bar, I had moved to Dallas for a little bit, but before then, I was representing a doctor friend of ours. Mm-hmm. And I had read that article and was talking with him, and he's like, oh my God, Pappy, that's supposed to be the best stuff ever. Go down to the Fort Myers Total Wine, and this was, let's say, 2010. On the shelf, 5-6 deep. 15 year, 20 year, 23. And
if only we
had you known now what you know now. But even then, like I'm fresh out of law school. I can't afford and it wasn't even money.
$60 was a lot for a bourbon.
Back then, like it took
you
the longest
buy
time.
that.
No, especially you're like I don't know, like sure
that's a lot of money for a whiskey, you know.
So he had me wait there. He's like, put them all in your cart. I'll be down there in like 25 minutes. Waited for him. Bought essentially 3 of each. As a thank you, gave me like a 15 and a 20.
Mm-hmm.
Which, funny enough, the 20 year ended up being my, like, the whiskey we opened with all my groomsmen wedding day. So.
There you
go. And then for going back to like the start of the society, from there it was like a bunch of high school friends, myself, Pat Beal, Chris Lopez, his wife Allie, Blake Bartholomew, Tommy Johnson. There was like a good 6 of us that would just consistently rotate. And I mean, a lot of times, like, none of us knew what we were talking about. There's no rhyme or reason. You would just essentially pick, all right, I just like this one better out of these 4 that we got.
Right.
But it kind of opened our eyes, and like, even back in the day, like it was just old number 7. Jack Daniels would be thrown in there just to throw somebody off, because in your mind you're like, oh, that's just, you find that on the shelf, that can't be good. But
right.
Hey, I'm trying this one that was like $45, and this was what, 3 years ago, and that $50 threshold is always hard to move past, and then you get to try more and more, and then you're spending way too much money, and you've got whole rooms dedicated to whiskey.
I remember talking with some friends, and just going back, I'm big into marketing strategies and how companies have done such, and I always grew up thinking that the big money brands were Knob Creek and Woodford Reserve. I always thought that. I was just like, because I remember having a buddy of mine, he's like, oh, I bought me a really good bottle of whiskey. What'd you get? He goes, I got me some Knob Creek. I was like, damn.
College weed.
$50, or 40, whatever it was. It was like, that's a lot of money.
There was a group of 3 or 4 of us that were like, if you're out at a nice restaurant or something like that, and you'd be like, you see Knob Creek, you're like, I'm going to have that tonight.
I guess
9 years old.
The good whiskey. The good whiskey. Oh, man.
Still to this day, I think Knob Creek is one of the most underappreciated brands out there.
Yeah. It's never really changed. It's like, right. And Maker's Mark has always gone by that strategy. There has never been a age stated in Maker's Mark.
And
they've always stuck by their guns, and they've always said they said we will put out this Maker's Mark when it tastes like Maker's Mark.
And it hasn't lost the quality. There's nothing that's changed over the years. And
no.
There's a reason why people would get that and people would be excited about it when I'm sure it's not allocated, but there's a reason why they've done as well as they have. You try any of the products, it's consistent and it's great. Their
baseline, like, how many big name distilleries do you know have a baseline product at $30?
Right.
You don't like $30 is a high entry point. In the grand, like, it may not seem like that way, but the grand scheme of things, that's a high entry point for a baseline whiskey. Right. And I remember Maker's Mark used to have that old slogan back in the 80s and 90s. It was like, it tastes expensive because it is.
I remember those old marketing.
Or something like that, and that was Maker's Mark's slogan, and so that was their way to combat certain things. So even to this day, they've done certain things where they've kind of they still have, even in 2023, they have their own niche in the market, and they're keeping themselves in a form of consistency. So since you started this group, we've become friends. I became an admin in this group because I believe in what you do and what you stand for. We have a myriad of picks that have been out there and that we have been on together, been separate. Everybody's been on them. When you go and pick a whiskey for this group, what are you looking for personally? Not from other admins, but you personally, what are you looking to get out of this pick?
At the end of the day, what tastes good to me? Like, I'm not looking for certain notes. I'm not looking for certain warehouses, not looking for certain profiles. Because I feel like you go into it, you're gonna just keep on searching for something that you're not gonna find.
Right.
With single barrels, every single one's gonna be different. Now, like, let's go back to the first pick we ever did, which was the Elijah Craig.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jason brought it up on the first one of these episodes. It was myself, James Posey, it was Jason, and like we had one other guy. I apologize for blanking, but the four of us got to go up to Kentucky and do the first live pick. And
What farmer was it?
Mr. Rob Farmer, thank you, sir. Love you, Rob. I love you.
I got you, dog.
You know I love you. But the four of us went up there, and I mean, you're a little bit nervous. You're like, okay, we're about to pick a whole barrel of whiskey.
Right.
We got entrusted from Fiddlesticks and Dave to, all right, you guys are going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
How's this going to do? Like, this was kind of make or break. No pick has really been done down here during that time frame.
Right.
We're new to this. Like, why are we getting trusted? Because sure, we think we know about whiskey, but even then, like, I'll tell you,
you've entrusted yourself.
Right.
That was key. You know.
We saw.
I get told. Oh shit. Yeah.
And the best part was, like, Dave has told us since then, when myself and James Posey walked into him to pitch him on it that day, his father-in-law, who's the owner, had, like, seen that we were there, and he goes, what do those guys want? What were they trying to sell you? They're like, no, they're trying to buy stuff. And our pitch at the end of the day was bring better whiskey to Southwest Florida. Yeah. And so when we're sitting there in the Rick House that day, we got 3 different barrels, and there was one that we kind of threw off right away. It just tasted almost like buttered popcorn and like a little off profile. Yeah. And there was one that just tasted almost like a classic Elijah Craig, just heightened up a little bit, because we're tasting. This scared us shitless as well, because they give it to you at cast strength and they're not watering it down to. And this is when they would only give it to you.
You're straight up guesstimating.
So luckily we had Jason. And he's like, all right, put this part of water in there, and it should hopefully replicate.
Right.
So we had one that we just thought was incredible, which was the one we ended up picking, and another one we thought was like a perfect representation of Elijah Craig. So we didn't think we would go wrong. Then we kind of stepped back and we're like, all right, somebody's going to come in and pick a barrel. Like, they buy a barrel pick. If they wanted, they're going to have to pay a couple more dollars for this. Why are they going to, if they end up buying this, they're like, oh, it just tastes like what you buy on the shelf. What's
the point? What's the difference?
So from that point forward, I think it got ingrained, like, all right, find something unique about it, or something that just really sets a different standard.
Right.
And I feel like, for the most part, I know any pick I've done and been part of, I think you find those kind of unique characteristics that you don't necessarily find every day, but something that sets it apart. And at the end of the day, like, you want it to be a whiskey that you enjoy drinking on multiple occasions.
Right.
You hope that it's versatile, that you could use it in cocktails, put it on an ice cube. You need to water it down because it's a little high proof. Because I think another kind of thing I've learned along the way is never judge anybody like how they drink whiskey. Like, however people want it is. When I started, I was drinking it on big ice cubes. Even way back when, it would always be mixed with Coke or ginger ale. Yeah. Like, everyone's journey, like, however you like it is how you like it.
We've got how many advents we have, and we're all completely different.
Exactly. And
you know. So I get it. I get it completely. When I was diving into exactly just some nuts and bolts, and I think we were talking about just geeking out a little bit on whiskey in general. We're talking about, you know, yeast strains and just everything of that nature, and not everybody's into that, which is 100% fine. But when we were talking about that and us going into dealing with picks, it's like we have that many members and we have that many different palates, and it's like, are we looking for, like you said, are we looking for something that's off from what we would normally get on the shelf? Are we looking for something that the majority of the masses would like? Are we looking for something that, you know, that all of the admins like together? And it's a fine line, and what I have always gone back to as your fail-safe when it's come to that, and I'm sure you would agree, is good whiskey trumps.
Yep.
You know, at the end of the day, you may find something off profile. You may sign, you know, and every now and again we'll put something out there that's a little different. But at the end of the day, if it tastes good, it tastes good. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
I'll put it in my head too, though. Going into these, I try to put myself at the end user. Am I willing to spend this amount of money on this bottle? And it's something that because what part of our job, at least in my mind, as this whiskey society is, we're lucky enough to have a backer like Fiddlesticks and other places that we've worked with.
Yep.
It's our job. If our name's on it, it's our job to make sure people like it and people want to purchase it because it's a reputation.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we're not spending our physical money on these. They are. They have to front the cost of it.
They have faith in what we're doing.
But we have enough of a reputation and background where people, when we release something, people trust that it's going to be a good quality product.
Right.
And it's going to taste good. Like, I understand there's always going to be some that people don't like, but everyone's palates is different. You learn throughout the time of doing all this that everyone's going to be different. There's something that, like, there's notes that I don't taste as strong as other people.
Right.
You recognize your strengths and weaknesses, and you have to be pliable at the end of the day to, okay, you trust your palate, you trust other people's palate, you're going to trust that at the end of the day, everyone comes to a consensus that it's going to be a good product.
Right. And prime example, we released our Remus pick.
Mm-hmm.
We released it a couple months ago, and Dave at Fiddlesticks blinded us as we came in and said, "Hey, here's brand X." He didn't even say it was a bourbon.
Right.
He said, "Here's brand X," and we tried it up, and he said, "All right, here's Remus." And I admittedly tried brand X and was just like, "This tastes really young. It's harsh. It did not taste really good." But to the caveat of that, there was somebody that was like, "Yeah, this, you know, it tastes kind of the same as the other one. They liked it." But me personally, I didn't think it tasted real good. But then he revealed it to be like East Taylor barrel proof for that particular year.
I'm the biggest advocate of people trying things blind. I think there's so many people out there that are so sold on marketing or thinking that one brand is better because of either the resellability or the popularity, multitude of different factors.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you break down everything is whiskey.
Right, yeah.
You try it blind. That's why I love what we do with the Advent calendar, that we do with the Best of the Best. A bunch of these kind of other events. And on top of that, like getting to try new whiskeys that are up and coming. Because there's a lot of whiskey fatigue out there. You walk into a Total Wine, you walk into any liquor store. There's hundreds of brands out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll admit, like even back in the day, it'd be what marketing kind of called out to me. What have I recognized? What have I tried before that I've liked?
Red wax.
Or even then, like, what looks cool? That bottle looks pretty interesting. I'm going to get that one. And then, unfortunately, a lot of times you get those kind of cool looking ones. It doesn't taste great sometimes.
Yeah.
But I found that the best way to figure this out is to try stuff. Take away all the bells and whistles. What you like is what you like. You could like a shelf whiskey that's $15. You could like a highly allocated bottle that's $200-300 MSRP. Doesn't matter. There's a whiskey out there that tends to be for everyone.
Yeah.
Let's help people find that. Because, like, one of my favorite things that was ever done was during the Advent, there was, like, Blanton's and an E.H. Taylor and stuff thrown out there. The one that I still remember from day one was the Colonel Taylor 6-year, which is a plastic bottle, like $15 to $20 handle. And Pat's brother ended up finding one in Texas and bringing it for me for a Christmas the following year.
Yep.
I guess I still have that bottle, and I still love that thing. And you put that up against any other bottle I have, I still enjoy it.
I got my best friend growing up. His name's Eric Miller. I got him into bourbon probably 2016. You know, kind of that time frame. He bought a bottle of Henry McKenna on the shelf. You know, loved it. Just thought it was phenomenal. You know, 10 years old, bought 100 proof, bottle and bond, single barrel. Loved it. Then he called me and goes, man, I love this Henry McKenna. And I said, well, good luck finding it because it just got double gold, and that's the kiss of death. So I was like, you're not going to find it again. I was like, so if you find it, buy it because you're not going to see it again.
When was that, 1920 when they won double gold? Because I remember that was the biggest thing.
It was 2016, 2017. Like, it was around the time.
Oh, I thought that, because I know they did another one where it won Best in Show. And
it was 2016, 2017, like around that time. Okay. Like it's gone. Fred Minnick had just like,
oh yeah,
you know, it's
good friend of mine, Fred.
Friend of the show, you know. I love the ascot. But no, it won, and I said, good luck finding it, man. I said, that's the kiss of death for a whiskey. It is gone, and so he could not find it anymore. So then he said, well, what do you recommend just instead? And I said, well, they just got rid of the age statement. However, I would go towards Elijah Craig. I said, go to Elijah Craig. I said, it's the same juice. I said, it's about the same age, maybe 6 proof points lower. I think it's 94 proof. Yep. I said, 6 proof points lower. I said, so it's pretty close to that. Loved it. He's a huge Elijah Craig fan.
Funny enough, that's part of why that was a strategic first barrel pick we ever did. Mm-hmm. We wanted something that was price affordable because, I mean, when you're first buying a barrel, you don't know what the yield's going to be. If it's 200 something bottles, it freaks you out.
Yeah.
So you want it to be affordable. You want it to have a brand name, which Elijah Craig does, and you want it to be known that it's going to be a good whiskey. And we trusted it was, and that first one sold out in 30 minutes.
At 94 proof.
94 proof. I mean, we got lucky. Dave priced it perfectly at like $32 a bottle.
Yeah.
There was no limits on it, which hindsight, it would be nice if we probably got it more out to the masses, but I mean, it was still in the infancy days when I think we were sub 1,000 people in the group.
Right.
But I mean, it's still to this day, I go back to it and I'm like, it was hard to top, like, with how much we caught into a bottle there. Like, It was so unique. It was aged perfectly. It was different than anything you could find on the shelf, but just everyone thought it tasted really good.
Yeah. I had never been a fan of the modern Elijah Craig that they changed to. Right. I wasn't an admin at the time when that bottle came out. I have always been, I love the Big Red 12 Elijah Craig. That used to be one of my favorite whiskeys I've ever had in my entire life, and I was mad that it went away.
We've had these discussions.
Right. So when that one came out, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna buy a bottle just to see. And I gave it, and I just tried it on a whim, and it reminded me the most of those old Big Red 12 years.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was delicious. And that was just me taking a hunch. It was like for $32. I was like, I'll take a stab at it. I'll give, what Sean was saying earlier when it comes to blinding. Everybody knows I'm a huge wild turkey person. There's a reason I'm a wild turkey person. I got blinded.
That's
101 was in the blind, and it beat out everything I ever had. It beat out everything I ever had. And so I have become such a wild turkey fanboy, and I just love what they stand for. But Wild Turkey 101 beat out a lot of big names on the on the section. But I appreciate what they were doing, and I appreciate everything that. And like I said, it's 9 years old, but it tasted like those 12s. It's phenomenal. So
back when we loved putting stickers on everything, and it was one of the more important conversations. What do we do? And
yeah, it's been a wonderful experience, and the one thing that Sean has instilled, and the other admins as well prior to myself, and this is kind of what when Sean and I first met, I discussed this because you had just really relatively gotten into bourbon. Give or take.
Deep diving into it, like I mean, I've enjoyed it, but just not to the degree.
Right.
That, like, okay, and we're running a society now.
Right.
People are going to trust that you know what you're talking about, so you got to drink it.
I had talked with Sean, and I had voiced my concerns when it came to running a group and being a part of the group when it comes to that, and I was just like, I have been in multiple groups before, and this is X problem. This is X problem that happens in those groups, and Sean and I were both in mutual agreement that this is not what we want our group to be.
Yeah,
and I would say, for the most part, 99%, our group is very, very well liked amongst the community. It's a very well-rounded community. There's not a lot of spammers, not a lot of trollers, flippers. It's a very decently close-knit community.
So we take care of that. I think on back-end stuff is you find someone that's trying to sell because that's not what we're about.
Right.
It gets taken care of quickly. At the end of the day, we don't want any of our members to get scammed with anything. Like, this is our area. We kind of hold out for our own. I mean, look at how Irma brought everyone close together.
Right.
And in the same sense, like, this has been an excuse for, all right, we're at 3,200 people.
Yep.
I'd say we've met, I mean, amongst our journey between all of us, say about half. Mm-hmm. At least in one way or another. And I think we generally care for each other.
Yeah.
It's a common denominator at the end of the day that brings people together from all different parts of life. And the best part is you get to meet people that all of a sudden become just lifelong friends, which you would never expect. Like, it's essentially become like a networking group without forcing it.
Tonight in general, Sean and I's wives were both out of town.
Right now, yes.
And I was like, I had just come back from visiting a friend, and I was gonna go to my house and just cook a steak, and so we were just sharing pours the whole night. And I was like, well, I feel like I'm just gonna stay. I was like, well, I might as well cook steak here. So I was like, well, all right, let's go buy steak. So we just had meals together. Like that's how.
Remember, this was supposed to be virtual, and then all of a sudden,
this is supposed to be virtual. I was supposed to go home. We're supposed to be on Zoom. Like, this is how that ends up. So it's like that's the camaraderie that this can bring. Like, whiskey can bring everyone together when in a time that is so divisive in the world. Like, this is the thing that can bring us together.
I mean,
we all agree on that we love whiskey.
That's what helps a lot too, because over the years, politics have gotten divisive. Like, COVID caused a lot of divisiveness throughout the communities. And funny enough, like, whiskey and alcohol brought people together. Like,
right.
I can't tell you why. I mean, sure, it got highly popular. And I mean, another reason why we kind of jumped into this group and made it into what it is because our area has kind of been underrepresented in the state of Florida. Like,
yeah.
You have Tampa 2 hours north. You have Miami 2 hours to the
I mean, even Sarasota had their own.
Exactly, and we're just kind of in that no man's land, and we're like, why aren't we getting what all these other places are getting? We have so many people. Sure, understandably, we have a lot of transplants, but there's a lot of people that live down here that love whiskey.
Yeah.
Why aren't we getting access to it? And I don't think, we were just trying to be able to activate a voice within the community to be like, hey, don't forget about us. Like, we're in between these big metropolitan areas, but there's a lot of people that have come from other areas that have tried great whiskey too, and they like to be able to find it.
And pre whiskey group, we had people that were around, and we could go. We'd get calls about an allocated bottle or whatever. We'd be battling against whoever was trying to go get the allocated bottle. Mm-hmm. Now that we have this group, people generally look out for each other.
100%.
It's like it's never really oh, screw you, I got this. It's just using some friends of mine, for example, no names being said, but it's like, that's hey, I know you like this whiskey. I was going to buy it, but I'm not going to drink it. do you want it? Like they'll do that, or vice versa. Kind of the same thing. It's like it's a very close knit group. Like it has become a close knit group of whiskey drinkers, and they look out for each other.
You come to the
which
realization, you come to the realization though. There's only so much whiskey you can physically drink without getting sick, causing issues within families or just health issues. But done in moderation, like it's the greatest thing to be able, because I love the concept that great whiskey makes great memories better. Mm-hmm. Like you get a certain special bottle for somebody, and it means something because like it shows your appreciation for them.
Yep.
Or it's a wedding, it's a get together that you haven't seen friends in so long, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an allocated bottle. It could be any bottle, but all of a sudden that puts a special meaning to it, and from that day forward, you're going to see that bottle and you'll be like, that's why that's special to me.
Right. So, Sean, I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this interview. Everybody out in the everybody out in our group only gets to see us every now and again whenever we make a post or if we're at a release, but they don't really understand exactly our thought process or how we do things, or they just see us as like, oh, they get to pick all the whiskey or whatever like that. So I want to, kind of my thing that I want to do is I want to deep dive into every admin's brain, see what they're thinking, and eventually I like to get out and I'll just interview just random people that are in the group that are contributors and see what they're thinking.
I'd say at the end of the day, they're just as important, if not more, than any of us that are trying. So it's a lot of work behind the scenes. It's cultivating relationships with the representatives from the distilleries or the distributors, and trying to get ways where, the kind of brands that people want down here. Right. You always want to get those down there because that's going to be a reason somebody for the first time will step foot into the store. Right. They'll see a highly allocated bottle. Okay. But guess what else we're going to do? Why don't you try some of this other stuff? That there's great other craft whiskeys, other not as popular brands out there, but you try it and you're going to like it. Right, of course. I'm the biggest proponent, which is why we do a lot of educational. We do a lot of just virtual tastings, live tastings. And you could be brand new. You give us a shot, we're going to give you everything that we can on our end. Our first educational event ever was Chattanooga whiskey, which I went to Florida State, met Pat Davis, who is the state of Florida rep for Chattanooga. Took a shot on us.
I took a shot on the floor.
But so his cousin is the founder of Chattanooga whiskey. Yeah. Got onto a virtual event with 25 of us, sent a bunch of the samples to us which we distributed to everybody, not a cost to anybody. I'll tell you, the Chattanooga pick that we got a year later was probably one of the best picks I feel like we've ever done.
It's my favorite.
It's so unique. It's so different.
I've been on 2 wild turkey picks that we've done, and the Chattanooga is my favorite.
I mean, it says something. There's so much out there that I always you feel good about the product that we put out, but there's always something else that can be out there that maybe can top some of the other ones. And we'll put up polls. We'll be like, all right, what's the favorite store pick that we've done? Everyone's got a different answer. I mean, there tends to be some consensuses on a couple of them, but if there's a brand for everybody, it kind of breaks my heart sometimes when some of the allocated stuff, you only get so much. And you gotta limit it, and you want people to have, because I'm of this sense too, I always hate when you finish a whiskey where you're like, that's a memorable whiskey. Yeah. Now I'll never have it again. But there's always other bottles.
Right. Whiskey's made to be enjoyed.
Exactly.
It's like, Sean, since you've known me, you know me that I don't like it. Majority-wise, I don't like MGP whiskey, and I don't like really oaky whiskey. What's one of my favorite whiskeys to pick and create?
What's that?
Oaky.
Well, we're the only ones that get signed up for. But funny enough, I find that Oak and Eden is one of the more divisive ones. Yeah. People either love it or they don't like it.
And that's why I gravitated towards it.
But that's what I love about their profile is
Yeah.
like, there's people that love it, and I'm one of them. Like, it hits me the right way just because I don't know if I tend to not find a lot of tannicky, like stuff that people find like overly oaked or over tannic. I still gravitate to because it's muted on my palate. Which, thank God for me. But I can understand where other people are like, but for me, it's well done, and they're doing something completely different than anybody else. And we have a great relationship with us, with each other. And I mean, the people behind the scenes there are just great people.
Yeah.
And I hope to continue to do some picks with them. And I'll always, like that Amarana, it's readily available, and it's one of the more unique profile and great tasting whiskeys, at least in my eyes.
Amen. Sean, this has been enjoyable. Like I said, we'll keep these going with the rest of the admins in the group, and we'll start reaching out to some of the public as the months go by, and just go deep dive into each other's brains and just see what makes them tick and what their opinion is based of the group and how they think of it. So you can find us on YouTube at Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. Shoot us an email at southwestfloridabourbonsociety@gmail.com. Check us out Facebook, Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. Instagram, like I said, same at Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. It's all the same.
It's SWFL Bourbon Society.
Yep. So give us a check out, like, share, and subscribe, and let us know what you think. And we're pretty open to your opinion, but we won't listen to it if we don't like it. So that is what it is. But
throw a Roll Tide out there, or do I just say go Knowles?
We're 5, so I don't want to say Roll Tide. Roll damn Tide. All right. So take care, and we will see y'all on the next one.
See ya.